Welcome to the podcast for Renaissance Fellowship, where we are creatively and actively revealing Jesus' love to our generation. Here we find the script in Scripture and the text in context. Follow us at reddenfellowship.com or join us live Sunday nights at 6 p.m. in Sunrise, Florida, or online via Periscope. Here's our pastor, Jared Kring.
Okay, 70% and 78%. Okay, I want you to remember those two statistics. We're going to come back to those later. So put a tack there, and we're going to come back to that. Do you remember the first time that you got a large bill? Now, I'm not talking about like a electric bill, because those aren't the type of memories that we like to hold on to. But I mean like the first time you had like a $20 bill, a $50 bill, or a $100 bill. Like for the first time that was your own. Do you remember that? Okay, I remember it vividly. I was 9 years old, and we were at a church, and we had just gotten done ministering, and I was playing drums at that time. So I was 9, and I was like super cute, super cute. So this older gentleman, I mean, he was probably like 40, but like at the time, I thought he was like 90. When you're a kid, anybody over 18 is old. So he walked up and he thanked me for what I was doing and serving the Lord and doing that, and he handed me a brand new, crisp $20 bill. I immediately, frantically looked over at my dad to make sure that it was okay. Slightly concerned he was going to make me put it in the offering plate. Just slightly concerned. And I wanted to see if I was going to be able to keep. Because this is 1985. Okay, this is $20. It's going to go a long way. Now $20 will barely get you a movie ticket and a bowl of Menchie's. But like 1985, $20 was a lot of money. And I remember that $20 bill. I remember it was crisp. The edges were so sharp you could get a paper cut on them. It was brand spanking new, hot off the presses, okay? So I remember the feeling of having that $20 bill and all the things that I wanted to get in my imagination just rolling and going in what I wanted. So about a week later, we were in Schottenstein's department store in Columbus, Ohio, okay? Now, at the time, the biggest toy in the world, the most popular toys in the world, hands down, not even close, were Transformers. Transformers were it, and I was a freak for Transformers, okay? I had bunches of them, okay? But there were two Transformers that I wanted more than any others that I couldn't get yet, or I couldn't get. One of them was too big. I would have had to we would have had to pull another trailer or something to carry it. It was Omega Supreme, and there was no way we're gonna do that. The other one was this guy, Megatron, okay? The original Generation 1 Megatron. He was a robot that turned into a gun, or a gun that turned into a robot. That's kind of one of those philosophical questions, I think. The chicken or the egg, which one is he really? I don't know. But Megatron was the leader of the Decepticons, and he was very, very hard to find. Okay, there were not a lot of Megatrons. You could get Optimus Prime a lot of places, but Megatron was very difficult. So I'm in Schottenstein's department store, my 9-year-old self, walking and pretty much look exactly like this with no bald spot and no beard, and a little skinnier and shorter. So you got it? Everybody got the image? Okay, walking down the Schottenstein's, and I turn, and there's one Megatron on the shelf. I stopped breathing. I was like, my heart skipped a beat. I was so excited to see this Megatron. I immediately ran and showed it to my dad. I showed it to everybody. Oh my God, it's Megatron. And then I looked at the price, and it was $19.95. In 1985, this toy was $20. It was a lot of money. And immediately, my heart sank, because it was going to take every dime I had to buy this toy. And immediately, my mind starts churning. It's like, okay, what am I going to do? It was going to take every bit. There was going to be nothing left for like a candy bar or gum. There was nothing left whatsoever. So I had my $20 bill in one hand, and in my other hand, I had this toy that I had wanted for months, maybe even years, right? For a kid, an eternity. Right. I mean, it was an eternity of time. And little did I know that this is one of these life things that happens over and over again. You know, money in one hand, experience, opportunity, whatever else in the other hand, right? I mean, this is one of those life choices that happens many, many, many times. I didn't know that at the time, but there I was looking at the money and looking at this thing that I had really, really wanted. And you know what I did? I put Megatron back on the shelf. I put Megatron on the shelf. And I have regretted it every day since. Because here's the problem. If you sat me down in a CIA interrogation room with a light in my face and a gun to my head, you could waterboard me. I couldn't tell you what I spent that $20 on. I couldn't. I would not be able to tell you. There's no way. At some point, I broke the $20 bill, and then, once the $20 bill's broken, it's gone, right? It's not a 20 anymore. It's wrinkled up fives and ones and change, and it was gone. So I have no idea what I spent that $20 on, but I know that I could have spent it on Megatron, and I didn't. And it was an interesting lesson to learn at such a young age, because there are many lies that our culture tells us, right? There are many big whopping lies that our culture tells us. These lies are spoken to us as facts over and over again until we actually begin to believe that they're true. And some of those lies are men are from Mars and women are from Venus. Our culture loves to try to separate and make these barriers between genders. Some of the lies are that a political party or a person can somehow fix what's wrong with our world. One of the lies is high-waisted jeans are attractive. And not just mom jeans by another name, One of the other lies is that quinoa is food. No, it's not. It's not food. Another lie is that the Star Wars prequels are watchable. No, they're not. They're not watchable. These are the lies that our culture tells us on a regular basis. But above all of the big, giant, whopping lies that our culture tells us, the biggest lies are always about money. Always about money. Because our culture is consistently shoving down our throat what it views about money. And if you strip away the hype, you strip away the hyperbole, you strip away all the gloss, most everything that happens in media and culture has something to do with money. Trying to control our actions, our decisions, our thought process, one way or another through money. All about money. Who has it? Who doesn't have it, right? How do you get it? Where do you store it? Where can you keep it safe, right? How do you look like that you have more of it than you actually do? How do you look like you have less of it than you actually do so you're not a target? What do you do with it? How would you spend it if you had it? All of these things are all about money, and it preoccupies our mind all the time. I mean, music is filled with songs about money, right? I mean, in Cabaret, they say money makes the world go round, right? Cyndi Lauper said money changes everything. Steve Miller said take the money and run. Don't forget Biggie said mo money, mo problems. That's right. Actually, 90% of hip hop is about money in some way, shape, or form. It's all about, that's another conversation. But we're in a series right now called Thanks Living. And whether we like it or not, whether it's good or not, we can't deny the fact that so often our thankfulness is directly connected to our bank balance. Like if the bills are paid and we got a little extra money in the bank, boy, it's pretty easy to be thankful, isn't it? It's easy to say thank you. But if you've got more month than money, it can be a little difficult to muster up the thankfulness that you know that you should have. And we know that it shouldn't be connected, right? I mean, part of us knows that it shouldn't be that way. But it doesn't change the fact that so often it is. Now, we're basing this series that we're in, this Thanks Living series, on Philippians, the 4th chapter, verse 13, where Paul says this incredibly bold statement. He says, I can do all things through Christ which strengthens me. And the thought that we've had is that if Paul is making this huge, bold claim that he can do all things, then what are the steps that he takes, the process to get to where he can say this with such confidence? What's the process? Because I think, can we all agree that just because you say something doesn't make it true? Like, I can sit here 100 times and say, I look good in skinny jeans. I look good in skinny jeans. But none of y'all want to see me in those skinny jeans. Amen? Hey, you weren't supposed to agree with that. Come on, please. No, but here's the thing. Just because I say it doesn't mean it's true unless I'm willing to go through the process of what it would take for that to become a reality. Then what's the point, right? It doesn't make it true just because I say it. So what is it that Paul went through, and what did he do that made him be able to stand there in confidence and say, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me? So what's the process that Paul walks us through to get to this conclusion and get to this place so that we're not just being thankful one day a year when we have turkey and dressing and cranberry sauce and Uncle Bob talking too loud and Uncle Larry espousing an opinion that he doesn't really know anything about, that we can be thankful more often than just that one day a year and turn Thanksgiving into thanks living. And it all started, we did this in week 1, we looked at Philippians 4 verse 11, and where Paul says, not that I speak from want. And Paul makes it clear, first and foremost, that he's not complaining. The whole process to this begins with stopping complaining. And then he says, not that I speak from want, for I have learned to be content in whatever state I am. Stop right there. See, the first thing, these first 3 steps that we've looked at the last couple weeks are, I do not complain, I have learned who I am. And these things are like this chain reaction that happens, and it all starts with stopping complaining. We've talked about this a lot the last couple of weeks. Keeping our mouths shut, opening our eyes, opening our ears, being aware of our surroundings, and instead of complaining, asking questions, learning what's going on around us. Remember, if you're complaining, you cannot learn. Complaining and learning cannot happen at the same time because complaints end with periods or exclamation points. Learning always has a question mark. And when you're complaining, you're stating facts about your opinion. But the first thing that happens when we stop complaining is we start learning. And the first thing that God teaches us is not about, the 9/11 Commission and conspiracy theories or whether we landed on the moon or who shot JFK or what's wrong with your wife or what's wrong with your kids. The first thing God shows you is you. What's wrong? What's right? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? How can you be a better you? That's the first thing that God's going to show you. And it's an amazing process. Now, what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk a little bit about the next steps in this process. We're going to talk a little bit about money. We're going to talk a little bit about success and failure and how that fits into our identity. Okay, if I were to walk up here and tell you that I got an unexpected check for $1,000 in the mail, you would be like, nice, awesome, God is good, woohoo, yeah. Now, if I walked up here and I said, I got an unexpected water bill for $1,000, you would be like, oh, God, man, tough season. Oof. The devil is working, and man, it is challenging you, brother. And see, that is one of the biggest problems that we face as people is we still associate good things that happen in our life with God's favor and bad things that happen in our life with either God's displeasure, his indifference, or his absence. We think that if bad things are happening, it must mean that God's not around. Good things happen in my life, then God loves me. Bad things happen in my life, then God's mad, right? And this is the simplicity that we struggle with, especially as Christians. It can be really difficult and perplexing to us to balance this thing of good things and bad things that happen in our life. And that's what I want us to look at tonight as we continue this. We're going to pick up right where we left off. We've been in Philippians verse 11. We're going to jump into verse 12, and let's look at it. Okay, starting in verse 11, what we've already looked at. Not that I speak from want, for I have learned to be content in whatever circumstances I am. Verse 12, I know how to get along with humble means, and I also know how to live in prosperity. Stop right there. If you don't mind, the King James Version has, I'm going to go old school. The King James Version, usually has the thou, this hath cometh to thy place, and I gathereth my placeth in thy place, that stuff. It has a great way of phrasing this that I would like to use if you don't mind. The King James Version says that Paul says, I know both how to be abased and I know how to abound. And I just love those two words, abased and abound. Abased means to be brought low. And then abound means to bounce back and to succeed. And I just love the contradiction or the opposites of those two terms. Paul is saying that he knows how to have a little and he knows how to have a lot. And isn't it amazing to think about that you can learn how to have a little and you can learn how to have a lot. There's an actual process. There's an actual way to do it right. But it's critical that we understand this in the context of what Paul's saying up to this point, that he's talked about how he's learned how to be content in whatever circumstances that he's in. He doesn't define himself or gain his character or worth based on this level of prosperity, right? So the fourth thing we've done, I do not complain. I have learned who I am. Number 4, I know how to be abased, brought low, go through tough times, to not let tough times define me. Because it's all about perspective. I mean, money and success, I mean, they come and go, right? I mean, sometimes you have them, and sometimes you don't. And if you're going to base your life or your personal value and your worth on fleeting things like that, you're going to be a constant ping pong match of emotions as you go between these different things. And here's the thing, whether you have $1,000 in your pocket or you have $1,000 of bills in your pocket, it doesn't change the core of who you are. And I can hear your thoughts. You know I can read your thoughts when I'm up here, right? Oh yeah, Jared, that's easier said than done. Yeah, that's easier. Jared, you don't know what it's like to go without. Oh, really? My dad was in ministry my entire childhood. I know exactly what it's like to go without. Okay, don't talk to me about, I know what having a little is. I know what it's like to have 52 cents going into a service and we don't have money to eat or fill our gas tank and the gas tank's on empty and hoping that God gives us money in that service so we can survive the rest of the week. I know what that feels like. At 8 years old, praying before a church service that would happen and God coming through and blessing us more than we could ever imagine. I know, but I hear your thoughts. I mean, like, Jared, what if I'm scared of money? You know, what if I worry about it? Does anybody worry about money? Do you worry about it? I mean, you get up at night, maybe you're sweating at night, or you stay up worried, and you're wondering what's going to happen, how you're going to pay your bills. What if this happens? And you start creating scenarios in your mind. Well, what if this happens, and then that happens, then I won't have enough for this, and then I won't have enough for that, and then if that happens, then buddy, it makes the world go round. And it just happens, and you spiral out of control. And it's all a byproduct of our culture because we put so much emphasis on money and the importance of money. So if money's really that important and suddenly I don't have it, then what does that mean? What happens then? What happens if I don't have this thing that my entire culture says is the most important thing to have? Has anybody ever traveled like out of the country to like maybe a developing country or a third world country, maybe a mission trip or something like that? Okay. Now, if you go to one of these countries, you would think that they must be the most stressed out people, right? Because they don't have money. I mean, they're struggling. I mean, how could they possibly be comfortable or happy or joyful when they don't have money? So you think, we're going over to minister to them, but inevitably you go to these places and what do you find? You find joy, you find smiles, you find love, you find faith. And this is a completely baffling thing to our American mind. Because how can you be happy when you don't have money? When you don't have cars, when you don't have houses, when you don't have cell phones? How could you be happy when you don't have all this stuff that our culture tells us you have to have in order to be happy? Because their happiness is not based on their wallet. And they learn that. Here's a figure I want to give you. 2.8 billion with a B. 2.8 billion people in this world live on less than $2 a day. Think about that. Let's put it in context. I know that's an incredibly difficult number to wrap your mind around. There are 350 million people in America. So every man, woman, and child in America times 8, almost half the population of the world lives on less than $2 a day. $2. Okay, now we can have a conversation about how disturbing it is that many people in the world live on that little and how disproportionate the wealth. That's a different conversation, okay? The point that I want to make with that is simple. It's the focus and the emphasis that our culture has made us put on money, and that it is directly connected in America to our self-worth, to our sense of value, our sense of security is directly connected to that money. When you have 2.8 billion people in the world living on less than $2 a day, and are all those people miserable? No. Are they all happy? No, probably not. But they probably understand that there's a little bit more to life than how much money you're making or how much money is in your pocket. See, and when we stop complaining about how much money we have, we start learning about ourselves. And we realize that our contentment is not based on what's in our wallet, but instead based on what's in our heart. And we learn how we can go through a season of being without, of having a little, a season of difficulty, a season of trial, a season of trouble, where we're having a little and it doesn't change who we are. But Paul also says, I know how to be abased, I know how to live a little, but he also says, I know how to abound. I know how to have a lot. Now I can hear your thoughts again. Oh, dear, I'll take that problem. That's one I don't mind learning. Let me learn that lesson. I'll learn that abounding lesson. That's the one I want to learn, right? That's the easy one. But I wanted you to go back to those statistics that we started with. Remember those numbers at the very beginning? 70%, 78%? Okay, 70%. That is the percentage of lottery winners that file for bankruptcy within 5 years of winning the lotto. 70% of people who win the lotto within 5 years file for bankruptcy. Now, 78%, nearly 8 in 10, that is the number of professional athletes that file for bankruptcy within 2 years of their retirement. 78%. Now, you're probably sitting there going, oh, well, that wouldn't be me. I'd be that 30% that would, invest my money. I'd be the smart one. That wouldn't be that sucker but statistics tell us that 70%, if everybody in here won the lottery tonight, 7 out of 10 of us would be filing for bankruptcy within 5 years. Now, we can all sit and say that wouldn't be us. We're all in the 30%. Hey, fine. Maybe you're right. Maybe we're all the minority of what we would do. But here's the point. At the core of the point that I'm trying to make is the big lie. The big American cultural lie that money fixes what's wrong in your life. And it's we want to believe it because we're like, well, if I had money, then I wouldn't have to worry about this, wouldn't have to worry about this, wouldn't have to worry about this, wouldn't have to worry about that. Yeah, everything would be awesome, right? That money and wealth and plenty somehow is a cure for what ails us as a human being. And it doesn't matter what your problem is, money can fix it. Money can fix all things. And let me tell you, that's something only poor people believe. Because if you've ever known anybody who has money, or a lot of it, they have long since passed the delusion of believing that their money in any way, shape, or form is connected to their happiness. Because there's way too many miserable, jacked up rich folks out there. Just as many jacked up, miserable rich folks as there are jacked up, miserable poor folks. So that means that what's making us miserable and jacked up isn't coming from our wallet. It's coming from somewhere else. Now, this is not a cure For what's contentment does not come from an external source. Contentment in no way, shape, or form comes from your wallet. That is why Paul is sitting and telling us that he knows how to be abased. He knows how to have just a little bit. But he also knows how to abound and have a lot. I had a friend in Nashville when I lived in Nashville. And there's this whole career path that you can have in Nashville called songwriting. Okay, songwriters, they're just the people that write the song that somebody else sings. And the quickest way to make a lot of money in Nashville is not be a recording artist, it's to be a songwriter. Because you get one song, and it's the right song, and you're doing all right, okay? Now, he wrote the right song. He wrote a big song, and he started getting what we call mailbox money. And that's where you just go to your mailbox and checks start coming. And they keep coming, and they just show up in your mailbox. There's money. BMI just keeps sending you money. You're like, this is all right. So he got himself a big house. He got himself a couple of cars. He got himself a big boat. You know, you're in Tennessee, you got to have a big old bass boat, right? So he got himself a big boat. He had a wife, and he had a kid. But he started messing around with some drugs. So he had a big house, a big boat, and then he had a real big drug problem. So he went to rehab a few times. And every time I prayed with him and just said, man, you're going to do it. And he was determined, determined to kick his habit and to turn his life around. He was determined. But he never could. So we lost track with each other for a while. But I heard kind of what was happening with him. When the checks started to slow down, and then they kind of stopped. Because as the song kind of dwindles, the royalties start slowing down. So that money stopped coming in. But his drug habit didn't stop. So he lost his house, he lost the boat, he lost the cars, he lost everything he's had. His wife left him and took their child because she couldn't deal with this ebb and flow of this, dealing with this addiction all the time. And the last I heard, he had nothing. So I ran into him at a show, a couple years later. And I walk up to him, and I'm, ready to kind of put on my somber pastor face. Hi, how you doing? Somber pastor face. How you doing, right? And he looks up at me with big sparkly eyes, big smile on his face. He says, man, I've never been better. I was like, well, okay. I said, well, what's going on? He said, man, I'm dead broke. I ain't got 2 nickels to rub together. I was like, oh, okay, and that's a good thing? He said, oh, yeah, man. He said, I can't afford drugs anymore. He said, as long as I had that money, I couldn't kick the habit. It was enabling me to go get my drugs, but now I ain't got nothing. I ain't got nothing to buy nothing with. And I went to rehab again, and I'm out, and I've been sober for a year. And I said, my wife and I are in counseling. He said, my wife and I are in counseling. We're trying to put things back together. But, man, losing that money was the best thing that ever happened to me. Now, see, that's not really the American dream. That's kind of like, the inverted American dream, because our American dream tells us that we're supposed to get the big boat and the lake house and the cars and the success, and that's supposed to be what answers everything in our life. But so often, success given to the wrong person at the wrong time is a curse. There's no greater curse than giving money and ability and enabling someone who doesn't know what to do with it. And that's what happened to him. And he had to learn how to abound. How can you have plenty? How can you succeed and not have it define who you are? It's the challenge of success and the challenge of failure. Can I fail and go through tough times and have a little and not have it define my character? But inversely, can I be successful and not have pride and self-indulgence and ego creep its way into my heart and have that success define me? Because if my success defines me, then what happens when it goes away? I didn't say if it goes away. When? Because nobody maintains the same level. See, success and failure, what Paul's telling us here, are in seasons. They come in seasons, just like you go through summer, but winter's coming, right? And you go through winter, but summer's coming, right? You don't live in winter and assume that you're never going to need your swim trunks again, right? You don't throw them away. And you don't get into summer and throw your sweaters away thinking it's never going to be winter again. You understand that these things are seasons, and you've got to know how to do both and not let either one of those things define you. Because here's the thing, man. You are not suddenly more valuable to God because you've got more money in your pocket. God could not care less how much money you have. It's not like, oh, Jared's got $1 million. He's praying. I better jump on that one. I want to make sure Jared's taken care of. He's got that money. I want to make sure. Oh, that's just Isabella. She didn't have any money. I'll put her prayer on the back burner. God don't care about our money. He cares about our heart. He cares about what truly defines us and defines our contentment and who we are. And all of that is inside. None of it is outside. What defines our contentment and who we are and our value has nothing to do with what we wear, what we eat, or how much money we have. It's got nothing to do with any of that. Because man looks on the outward appearance, but God looks on the heart. And what Paul is showing us is, hey man, I've learned how to be content no matter what. I know how to have a lot, and I know how to have a little. And the question is, can we learn how to be thankful for both? That's a challenge. Now, you may have had a great year, 2016. I had a pretty good 2016. But I watched this show this week that made a pretty good case for 2016 being the worst. Right? I mean, if you think about the wars that just spread around our world, terrorism attacks almost daily happening, both abroad and domestically. If you think about an election that turned into just a mess that stained the heart of our country, and even the people that we lost this year, maybe personally, people in your life, maybe people you respected or were influences on you. 2016 may have been really challenging, but can we still be thankful for all of it? Can we be thankful for the ones that we love? Can we be thankful for the challenges? Can we be thankful for the breath in our lungs? Can we be thankful for a God that keeps his promises? And the promise is not that we're always going to be successful or that we're always going to have a lot. If anybody tells you that that's the promise, they're selling you something. That is not the promise. The promise is that he is with us no matter what we go through. High or low, deep or wide, a lot, a little, abased, abound, he is with us. And we don't have to be afraid because of that. Even when we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, we don't have to be afraid because of who's with us. Now, that is something to be thankful for. So as we go into Thursday, and we've got our turkey, and we got our dressing, and our cranberry jelly, and we're eating, and it's awesome, and we sit around, and we're thankful. Can we be thankful for when we were abased, when we were brought low, and when we abounded, when we succeeded and we prospered? Can we be thankful for both? Because here's the thing, no matter which one we were, inside, we were still the same person. We were still a child of God, and we still had value. And we can't let our external circumstances define who we are and what our value is. That will inspire us to live not just thanksgiving, but thanks living.
We hope you enjoyed our podcast. We invite you to subscribe and spread the word on your favorite social media and follow us at REN Fellowship or keep up with us at renfellowship.com. Tune in next time as we continue to share the gospel according to common sense.